that can go around the burner that, I don't know, they're about that high. So to distribute the weight either for the electric burners that are a little more, you know, not as rigid, I guess, as the gas grates. And also I think that might work for a glass top stove, just to distribute the weight better so that it's not sitting directly upon the glass.
Yeah, I would recommend calling the Camp Chef people and saying, what can I do so that I can use my, either the Camp Chef or the Presto people, and ask them what you can do. Because
you think one of those electric little
the hot plate,
plates?
well, we did it at the extension service office. They had a hot plate.
It just
takes a long time.
I got
to get it
an
up
industrial strength 1500 watt.
That might be just fine.
Monsters.
I would think
Like
that would be fine. Yeah. You know, it's just you don't want to work the bottom of your canner.
Right. Okay.
So, and you don't want to break your glass top because those are expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, so we've got it going along, and yeah, maybe. So why would you pressure can, right? We sort of went over this in the beginning with the acidity. So really anything that is low acid, you just gotta pressure can it to be safe. So your vegetables, your meats, anything like that. And you can mix them as long as you're following a tested recipe. Like you can make stew and that sort of thing. So I feel like I'm do you have any specific questions about, it's very obvious to me, so I feel like maybe I'm not covering.
Okay, another thing that surprised me was, you know, once it stayed on that 14 pounds was basically where I put it, and then after the 90 minutes, you know, then you can take it off the stove, you know, put it on a rack or something, and you still can't open it, and it takes at least 30 minutes or 45 minutes before the little pressure thing indicates that it's gone. You know, the canner, the dial gauge says that it doesn't have anything, and then mine has a little flip top.
It has a little lock on the top.
Yeah, the little lock, the pressure lock, and that goes down, and then you wait another 10 minutes, and then you try and take it off, and if there's any resistance, you really don't, you know, it's still not done. So you take that off, and then you wait for 5 minutes, letting them cool 5 more minutes in the thing, and then you carefully lift them out with your jar lifter. Would you show them a jar lifter? If you don't have some of these tools, they are very handy. Take it out with your jar lifter and put it on something, and don't touch it for 24 hours, you know. So it is a long process. Now, with my chicken, it ended up being over-processed because I did my chicken, and it took all this time, and it took more time, and it took more time, and it took more time, and then suddenly I was supposed to go to dinner with my husband's best friend from high school, and they, you know, and I had just taken it off the stove. We were already late, and I'd taken it off the stove. I did not have time to wait for the 30 minutes. But I called the extension before this is why I was chicken. This is why I'm good, guys. Nobody could be more chicken than me. You know, it was 4 hours later before I finally got it out of the pressure canner. But that was okay. It did over-process it. Even after 4 hours, when I took those things out, there were still bubbles coming up in the liquid. I was amazed. So it's very well cooked chicken. But I didn't give anybody salmonella. It was totally safe because I had canned it the right amount of time. You do not ever force open, you know, force cool like you can with a pressure cooker where you pour cold water on it. Never do that, because you can contribute to breakage, some siphoning. They have, in this time frame that they've got on the pressure canning, that's all figured in. How long it's going to take to get it out of the canner, or how long, you know, I mean, that's all figured in. Got to stick with exactly what they do. Once you've got it off the stove, then you're safe to not take it out. So it's safe, but the quality, you know, Jana Darrington, who's the head consumer and family sciences down at the extension service, said, well, I'd eat it first because the quality's not going to be real good after 4 hours over what it should have been. But, you know, on that cooling process, but that was the cooling process. The cooking, you know, was done right, and that was the important part. So you can leave it at that point, but, you know, you have to make sure that you've got that to that point. It just takes a lot of time, yeah.
So the chicken, you cook the chicken before you put it in the jar. What's the liquid in there? Do you just put water?
I put some, you can put either boiling water or I put broth, just chicken bouillon.
Did you just heat it up? The
Yeah,
broth and
yeah,
cold,
you gotta have everything boiling for that. Now, your jar lids don't have to be boiling, they just have to have been hot, like you can have some boiling water and take it off the stove and then put your lids in. Let them sit in that for a couple of minutes, that kind of thing. I put my lids in a crock pot. You don't wanna keep them at too hot a temperature for too long because you just want to soften the compound on the lid without making it so soft that it's no longer going to work. Now,
Do you ever reuse those lids?
no,
No.
you're never supposed to reuse those lids. I know that some have come out saying, we can reuse them. I don't believe that Extension Service has okayed those yet. Partly because I think people would overdo it and then they'd be in trouble. And I mean, if I'm gonna put that much work into it, I'm not gonna take the chance.
It's only a few bucks.
If you buy a bulk group of lids, is there any shelf life on those before you have to use them?
I have not heard that there is. I know that anything that is rubber is going to age. So, we can find that out. Is there a shelf life on there?
There isn't, but I've never really thought about that.
Good question.
Yeah. The only ones that I have noticed the compound going bad on are the ones that I had in my crock pot heating up that I didn't end up using. And those ones probably I should not use.
There
Unless
is
it's-
one, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
There is one thing to watch out for that I experienced this summer, which was very frustrating. If you buy, speaking of shelf life, if you're buying new jars, a lot of times they will store them for long periods of time in hot warehouses, and when they come to you on the shelves, they are sealed. Like you'll take the lid off and it goes boop, and you'll look at the compound and there's a ridge in it as if it had almost been canned, like when you take the canned lids off and look at them. So that's something to be aware of and watch out for because it could compromise the sealing ability.
Yeah, just look at it, yeah.
I've had that same problem. I went through and marked the lids that popped off, and those were the lids that did not seal.
Right, interesting, okay, so
Off
now
your
we
new
know,
ones?
don't use them.
Off the new cans when they pop off, mark it. And if you do decide to use it like I did, those were the ones that did not seal. Because when I do my pressure cooking, I will, after it's gone through all the process, I'll set them on my countertop for a couple of days. Because I wanna make sure when I put them down in storage that they're not gonna be loose. And I'll go through and just kind of flip with my finger, because if it didn't can, it'll pop right off. And those were the ones that they did lift right off.
Okay, so maybe if you're real stingy, maybe you could use them for something like jams or jellies
Yeah.
that aren't
Yeah,
going to.
It's not gonna hurt you.
Yeah, it's not gonna hurt you and stuff. I mean, if it goes moldy, then you throw it out, but you'll know if it goes moldy. For something like jams and jellies. So, okay, so that's a good thing to know. We probably don't wanna use those lids.
So after you can something, how long is it good on the shelf?
It's actually technically good forever, but the quality will, as long as you've got that good seal on it, but the quality deteriorates and the nutrition deteriorates. It's best to can what you will use within a year, somewhere around a year. You can, if you canned it, then it's okay.
Will it discolor?
Yes, it will discolor.
But it doesn't mean that it's bad. Like it's
There
just
is
losing
no way
color,
to tell,
or-
there is no way to tell, if botulism is odorless, colorless, and everything else. So if you have a question, check it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good like your old peaches and old apricots, they make great fruit punch bases when they've
Right.
kind of gotten discolored. And I have it's called Old Fruit cake recipe, and it's just like a regular cake you do in your regular pan, but I haven't been able to find it lately. But I used to use that when my kids were growing up, and it's just a bottle of blended fruit is it has the sugar and the liquid, and I'm not even sure if it had egg, I can't remember how it was, but it eliminated several things by using a bottle of your, fruit. And so,
Okay.
you know, blended in that, it's wonderful. If you find one of those recipes, I'm gonna figure out where mine went.
Okay, and you know, I mean, as long as the stuff is safe.
Yes.
But,
it's
you
discolored.
can use them for fruit leather,
Yeah.
stuff like that. You know, the texture is gonna start getting mushy. You don't take off your rings until after that 12 to 24 hours. And then you make sure you clean it good. And then you can either, I use my rings to store, my rings and old lids to store my jars, my empty jars, so that I don't have to, you know, find bugs in them and spiders and stuff like that. I really don't like that. But, you know, so you take these off and you store it this way, but you don't retighten, you don't readjust these lids after you've gotten them out of your canning. You take them off after the 12 to 24 hours and then check your seals. And if you can leave them on a counter for 2 or 3 days, that's not a bad idea. So.
And it is also, just one more last point, very important, they really emphasize the only finger tightening the lids, and with pressure canning, that's especially important because because the pressure is so great, if you get them really cranked down on there, often it will cause the flat to buckle, which of course won't seal, and you burn the flat and everything comes out, so
Yeah.
very important for pressure canning.
Yeah, so finger tightening, like this. You know, not like this. Okay, finger. You should be able to get it on and off with your fingers and
Can I make
Like
just a
that.
comment that you don't speed up the releasing of the pressure, you let it naturally drop down, because if you try to speed it up by moving and letting steam out, you actually have bottles that will break inside your canning and you'll lose bottles. So you can't cheat.
yeah. No cheating. Absolutely no cheating.
And the
on this.
rocker, you never mess with the rocker once the pressure is there, because you can blow the lid off.
Great.
Yeah, you don't want this stuff. You know.
It's-
You just do
gotta
it their
let
way
it's
and
normal.
get a good chick flick, you know, and just have it up in the kitchen. It'll be fine. Well, you don't have to have chick, you know, get some BYU games or something.
Okay, we're out of time for this class, but if you want to finish your last closing remarks.
Okay, well, I guess the main thing that we wanted to point out was get the right things. This is all online. You know, it's free online. Not free if you get it from me, it's $16.50. But it's got a lot of information in it. It's got the whole canning basics, talks to you about headspace, does everything that you could possibly want, tells you everything that you need to know. And if you have any other questions, then you call the extension service. But go ahead and do it. I mean, you know, if I'm not killing my family, you won't either. Just make sure you do